What if I told you one government statement may have just put billions of dollars of investment at risk? We all know over the past few months, hundreds of Nigerians have fled South Africa. Businesses have been abandoned. Families packed decades of their lives into a few suitcases. People have been unalived. Then the Nigerian government asked for compensation. South Africa didn't just refuse. A cabinet minister answered with a remark that sparked across Africa within just hours. Most people thought that was the story, but it wasn't. Just 4 days after, inside Nigeria's Senate, a proposal emerged that could have hit some of South Africa's biggest companies where it hurts the most. And once you see the numbers behind that proposal, you would understand why this is not just some ordinary diplomatic dispute. It could change how African governments respond to attacks on their own citizens for years to come. Now, let's go back to April for a second so that all this makes sense. Mobs in South Africa gave African migrants a deadline: leave by June 30th or else. People were unalived around that date. A Ghanaian man named Bashiru Isaac was one of them. Now, Nigeria says at least 4 of its citizens have been unalived since April. And some of the people who made it out think the real number is far more than that declared by the South African government. 4 flights, more than 850 Nigerians flown home. Ghana's numbers look almost as heavy, close to 1,000 gone and another 900 waiting. And these weren't tourists. Some had lived in South Africa for 20 years, running shops, salons, car lots. You don't just fit 20 years into a suitcase one morning. You just hope it's still standing when you are allowed back. So Nigeria's High Commissioner made a call. They write everything down, every shop, every car, every asset, so Abuja could actually bring real numbers to Pretoria and ask to be paid. That's really the moment this whole thing turned from a tragedy to a negotiation. South Africa's minister in the presidency, Kumbutso, said legal property owners were free to sell whatever they had left behind. That's fair on paper, but think about what a forced sale actually looks like. Right now, you are running for your life. The violence hasn't stopped and you need cash fast. Nobody selling under those conditions gets anywhere close to what that shop or that house is actually worth. The buyer knows exactly how much leverage they have. Calling that a fair market is very generous. In practice, it means handing over 20 years of hard work for whatever you are offered, because you don't have time to negotiate. And if your shop happens to sit in an informal settlement, she said that is not property at all under South African law. So there is no compensation. You know there is more. She went further and set the line that break the internet. We'll be interested to know where the drug dens of Nigerians are.
But we'll be interested to know where the drug dens of Nigerians are.
A sitting government minister on camera explaining why she wouldn't pay for burnt out shops by tying an entire country to a drug crime. Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Ministry called it hate speech. A former Nigerian senator asked whether she had actually said that. She didn't walk it back at all. She just wrote, "I didn't stutter." You have almost got to respect the confidence. 4 days later in the Nigerian Senate, a man named Adams Oshomole, he's a senator now, he used to be governor of Edo State, stood up and according to reports from the Senate floor, he named names: MTN, the bank Stanbic IBTC, even MultiChoice, the company behind DSTV. He proposed that Nigeria should seize their profits, and that's billions of US dollars, and pay Nigerians with South African money instead of Nigerian taxpayer money.
To those Nigerians whose properties were looted, shop burnt, and even life taken, by the government of Nigeria reciprocate by appropriating the profit accruing from South Africa shares in all South Africa companies in Nigeria, including their banks, IBCT, that the money be seized and used to pay Nigerians.
A few hours later, the Senate voted his plan down. For now, choosing investigation over retaliation. But here is the thing, Nigeria has done this dance before. In 2019, after a similar wave of attacks, Nigeria recalled its ambassador and boycotted the World Economic Forum in Cape Town. Calls to boycott MTN spread across Nigeria's social media. The financial hit back then was small, but right now, the pressure is building on a bigger stage. Ghana is pushing these straight into the African Union's agenda. Evacuations are already draining migrant labor and money out of South Africa's economy. That's the backlash already happening quietly, while everyone's still stuck talking about one bad quote. So, case closed, right? Wrong. You can vote down a policy. You can't unsay a number. MTN made $12.7 billion and Nigeria and Ghana made over 90% of that profit. And it's not small money either. MTN poured over $1 billion into the Nigerian market last year. More than double what they spend inside South Africa, their own home country. So Nigeria isn't some side market for MTN anymore. At this point, basically, Nigeria is MTN. Which means when a senator says, touch their profit, he isn't bluffing. He's pointing straight at the one artery keeping South Africa's biggest company alive. Ghana noticed too. President Ramaphosa had a state visit planned to Accra, and Ghana asked him to push it back over the xenophobia and the unaliving of a Ghanaian citizen. South Africa's president says it's just a scheduling clash with an unrelated summit. Maybe both sides are a little right, but every headline that week read, Ghana rejects Ramaphosa, and by the time anyone could sort out the real reason, the story had already gone around the world. So here is the actual mistake in all of this. It was never really about the insults. Insults fade out of headlines in about a week. The real damage is that South Africa's own government just proved out loud exactly how much leverage Nigeria is sitting on. Using South Africa's own numbers. Nobody leaked any of that. It was sitting in a public earnings report the whole time. A senator just stood up and read it out loud on the floor for the whole country to hear. And from experience, an idea like that doesn't just disappear because one vote failed. It waits for the next attack, the next careless quote from the next minister. Next time, that number won't surprise anyone in that room. It will be the starting point. A friend of mine in Lagos runs a small import business. When I told him about this story, he didn't ask about the insult. He just asked, is South Africa still safe for my money? And that's really the question sitting underneath all of this. Not who insulted who. It is what an entire generation of African investors is quietly deciding about where their money actually belongs. So my prediction is that this isn't over yet. The next flare-up brings that same idea back, louder with more people behind it. The only real question is whether Africa actually builds rules to protect its people and its money before that happens, or whether every single incident just keeps getting settled, one furious senator at a time. Tell me where you think this goes, and be honest with me. If it were your money, would you still put it in South Africa this month? See you in my next video.